My daughter had me declared dead while I was in surgery so she could sell my house. The doctor woke me up just in time to watch her sign the papers on the hospital CCTV. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who ends up on Reddit telling a story like this. I'm 68 years old, widowed 12 years now, and all I ever wanted was for my only child to be happy. Melanie was my whole world after her daddy died in that trucking accident outside Tulsa back in 2013. I was 56 then, working double shifts at the Walmart pharmacy counter and cleaning offices at night just so she could go to Oklahoma State without a mountain of debt. Paid her tuition, her rent, her car, even the down payment on that overpriced condo in Edmond when she married Derek, the real estate entrepreneur, 8 years ago. Derek with the fake tan and the leased Escalade and the smile that never quite reached his eyes. I gave them everything. My house in Norman, the one I bought in 1998 for $118,000 and finally paid off last year, was supposed to be Melanie's someday. I even added her name to the deed in 2021 because she kept crying about wanting security and not trusting reverse mortgages. I figured it was fine. She was my daughter. Blood don't lie, right? Wrong. It started with the chest pain in March. I thought it was indigestion from too many nights eating chili out of the can, but my doctor in Norman sent me straight to OU Medical Center in Oklahoma City. Triple bypass. They scheduled it for April 3rd. Melanie drove me to pre-op, held my hand, told me she loved me. Derek waited in the parking lot because hospitals make him anxious. I remember kissing her cheek and telling the nurse, "Take care of me, honey, I've got a granddaughter I still need to see graduate high school." They wheeled me in at 7:12 a.m. Anesthesiologist was nice, asked if I wanted him to say a prayer. I laughed and said I'd take all the help I could get. Next thing I know, I'm fighting through the fog, tubes down my throat, alarms beeping, and Dr. Patel, my surgeon, is leaning over me yelling, "Mrs. Harrington, stay with us." My eyes cracked open. Everything hurt like fire. He looked terrified. Not the calm Indian man who'd explained the graft procedure 2 days earlier. Terrified. "Ma'am," he whispered, "we had to wake you early. Something's happening. Security is on the way." I couldn't talk with the ventilator, so he held up his phone. He'd pulled the hospital CCTV feed on some admin portal. And there, clear as day in the family consultation room down the hall, was Melanie. My Melanie, sitting at the table with a notary public and a woman in a blazer I didn't recognize. Melanie was signing papers. A whole stack of them. The notary was stamping. And the timestamp on the video said 2:47 p.m. 7 hours after they'd rolled me into the OR. Dr. Patel zoomed in. I saw the top sheet. Oklahoma residential property transfer on death deed revocation and new warranty deed. My name was listed as deceased. Date of death: April 3, 2025. Cause: intraoperative complication. My daughter had brought a fake death certificate to the hospital while I was under the knife. I started thrashing. Monitors went wild. Nurses rushed in. Dr. Patel grabbed my hand hard. We caught it because the notary called the floor to verify pronouncement time. "Our charge nurse knew you were still in recovery. I ran in here myself and reversed the paralytic 20 minutes early. You're alive, Mrs. Harrington. You're alive and we have proof." The betrayal hit worse than the incision in my chest. My little girl, the one I'd rocked when she had ear infections, the one I worked 70 hours a week for, had tried to bury me before I was even off the table so she could sell my house. Security arrived with 2 Oklahoma City PD officers. They watched the footage. One of them, a woman named Officer Rodriguez, looked like she was going to throw up. "Ma'am, do you want to press charges right now?" I still had the tube. I just nodded until tears ran sideways into my hair. They let me breathe on my own an hour later. Melanie tried to come into recovery all fake concerned, carrying a Starbucks cup and saying, "Mommy, how are you feeling?" like nothing happened. 2 detectives were already waiting outside the door. She saw them and dropped the coffee. It splattered across the linoleum like blood. "Melanie Grace Harrington," one detective started, "you're under arrest for forgery, filing false instruments, attempted theft by deception." She screamed that it was a misunderstanding, that Derek told her I'd signed the papers weeks ago, that she was just protecting my assets. The notary, an older lady who looked mortified, kept saying, "She provided a certified death certificate from the attending physician." Except the attending physician was Dr. Patel, who marched out holding the fake certificate in an evidence bag and told them exactly where they could stick it. They cuffed her right there in the hallway while half the cardiac floor watched. Derek tried to bolt when they called him in as a co-conspirator, but hospital security tackled him in the parking garage. Turns out he'd been the one to pay an expedited service $3,800 for the forged death certificate using a crooked funeral home contact in Texas. I lay there in that bed, chest cracked open, watching my only child get Mirandized while she sobbed, "Mom, tell them it's a mistake." I couldn't even look at her. That was the moment every sacrifice I'd ever made turned to ash in my mouth. Every Christmas I worked retail the day after Thanksgiving so she could have the American Girl doll. Every time I skipped my own doctor visits to pay her credit card bills when Derek lost another deal. Every single second I put her first. She'd looked me in the eye that morning, kissed my forehead, and then tried to erase me for a $420,000 payday. The house had appraised at $420,000 2 months earlier when Derek convinced me to get a HELOC in case of emergencies. Guess the emergency was their third bankruptcy filing they forgot to mention. Nurses kept coming in to check on me, bringing extra blankets, asking if I needed the chaplain. One sweet girl from Ada held my hand and whispered, "My mama went through something similar with my brother. You're not alone." But I was. I was completely alone. Dr. Patel sat with me after visiting hours. He told me the DA was already involved because forgery of a death certificate to transfer real property crosses state lines with the Texas connection. Federal implications. He said the hospital was preserving every frame of CCTV, every login, every phone call. And then he told me the part that made my blood run cold. Derek had scheduled closing for 9 a.m. the next morning. Cash buyer. Some LLC out of Florida. They were planning to list my furniture on Facebook Marketplace that same week. My clothes were already boxed in the garage. Melanie had posted on a local moms group asking for recommendations for estate sale companies after my mother's sudden passing. I stared at the ceiling tiles until they blurred. All I could think was, I'm not dead yet, baby girl. And you just made the biggest mistake of your life. The next 3 weeks in the cardiac ICU are a blur of pain meds and police interviews. They moved me to a private room with a guard outside after Derek's cousin tried to sneak in wearing scrubs. Turns out the cousin owed Derek $60,000 in crypto gambling debts and was promised 10% if he could make sure Grandma didn't wake up confused. The feds picked him up in a Denny's parking lot in Moore with a fake nurse badge and a syringe full of insulin in his pocket. He rolled on Derek in about 30 seconds. I had a public defender appointed to me as a victim, but I hired my own attorney anyway. Margaret Okonkwo, best estate litigator in Oklahoma City. Cost me $15,000 I couldn't afford, but I paid it out of the savings. Melanie didn't know I'd moved into a revocable trust right after she started pushing for power of attorney last fall. Thank God for paranoid old ladies and late-night Google searches. Margaret walked into my hospital room on day 10 looking like Vengeance in a navy suit. She laid photos on my blanket. Melanie and Derek at the title company. Melanie signing my name on the HELOC documents they'd tried to file the week before surgery. Derek wiring $25,000 to an account in the Caymans the day I went under. Then she showed me the real kicker. Melanie had taken out a $200,000 life insurance policy on me 6 months ago. Rider for accidental death during surgery. Double indemnity. $400,000 payout if I died on the table. The beneficiary? Not my granddaughter. Not a trust. Just Melanie and Derek, jointly. I threw up in the little pink basin. A nurse ran in. Margaret waited until I stopped dry heaving, then said, "We're not just stopping the house sale, Mrs. Harrington. We're taking everything they have. And we're doing it completely legally." The criminal case moved fast. Cleveland County DA charged them both with conspiracy to commit murder for pecuniary gain, because attempting to steal the house while knowingly risking my death under anesthesia qualified. Bond hearing was a circus. Melanie showed up in a modest gray dress, hair in a bun, trying to look like a grieving daughter. The prosecutor played the CCTV of her laughing with the notary 5 minutes after signing my fake death certificate. Judge denied bond. Derek started screaming that he was being set up by the deep state. Melanie just stared at me in the gallery and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I didn't mouth anything back. Civil side was where Margaret went full scorcher. We filed an emergency lease pendens on my house the day I was discharged, freezing any sale. Then we sued for slander of title, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, forgery, and punitive damages. We attached every asset they had. Derek's Escalade got towed from the impound lot. Melanie's condo went into receivership, their joint accounts frozen under the proceeds of crime statute. The best part? Melanie's real estate license. Turns out she'd been working part-time for Derek's investor group to make extra cash. Oklahoma Real Estate Commission launched an investigation the second the arrest hit the news. Channel 9 in OKC ran the story at 6 and 10 for a solid week. Local realtor attempts to sell mother's home while she's in open heart surgery. Her face was everywhere. Couldn't pump gas in Norman without someone recognizing her. I went home to my house on May 1st. My neighbor Carla, sweet widow from across the street, had been watering my plants and chasing off looky-loos who thought the place was vacant. She helped me up the steps. I sat in my own recliner for the first time in a month and just cried. Everything smelled the same. My late husband's old coffee cup still in the drain board. The quilt my mama made on the couch. They hadn't even waited until I was cold to start packing me away. Carla brought over chicken spaghetti and stayed while I opened mail. There was a letter from Melanie, forwarded from the Cleveland County Jail. I almost threw it away, but Margaret said I'd need everything for trial. I slit it open with a butter knife. 20 pages, front and back. How it was all Derek's idea. How she was scared they'd lose everything. How she loved me and just wanted to make sure I was taken care of in my old age. The last page was a single line in shaky handwriting. If you testify against me, they'll give me 20 years. Please. Mommy. I'm your little girl. I folded it neatly, slid it into an evidence envelope, and handed it to Margaret the next morning. June brought the preliminary hearing. Melanie took a plea deal the day before. 10 years, out in 7 with good behavior, on reduced charges of forgery and attempted theft. Derek refused to plead, screaming about his rights. Judge set his trial for September. And that's when Margaret dropped the final bomb. The life insurance company, after seeing the police reports, denied the claim obviously, but then filed an interpleader action because Melanie had tried to accelerate the payout while I was still hospitalized. Under Oklahoma law, you forfeit all benefits if you feloniously cause the insured's death. But here's the delicious part. The policy had an incontestability clause, and since no death occurred, the company wanted to return the premiums with interest. Except Derek had paid those premiums with money laundered through his LLC. Money the FBI now had flagged as proceeds from a pill mill kickback scheme he'd been running with a pain clinic in Del City. Every single premium dollar was tainted. The insurer cut a check to me, the insured, for $18,400 in refunded premiums plus punitive interest. Margaret made sure it went straight into my new trust, the one Melanie would never touch. August came hot. I was walking half a mile every morning, rebuilding my strength. Got a rescue dog from the Norman shelter. A senior mutt named Buster who didn't care that my chest still ached when it rained. Life was quiet. Neighbors brought casseroles. My church ladies set up a meal train. Then September 3rd. Derek's trial. I walked into that courtroom using a cane for show. I didn't need it anymore, but I wanted Melanie to see me standing tall. She was there in orange jail scrubs, handcuffed to the table. Her hair was limp, no makeup, looked like she'd aged 10 years. When I took the stand, she wouldn't meet my eyes. The prosecutor played the CCTV again. The jury gasped audibly when Melanie laughed on tape and said, "Finally, we can list it for $450 and be done with this dump." Derek tried the "my wife acted alone" defense. His own attorney looked embarrassed. Jury was out 43 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, money laundering, the works. Federal sentencing guidelines put him away for 24 years minimum. Judge added a $500,000 restitution order payable to me personally. Melanie sobbed when they led Derek out. She looked up then finally and whispered across the courtroom, "Mom, please." I leaned on my cane, looked her dead in the eye, and said loud enough for the whole room to hear, "You stopped being my daughter the day you signed my death away for a commission check." The bailiff had to catch her when her knees buckled. October brought the civil trial. Melanie still thought Mommy's love had limits. Thought I'd settle, maybe pay her legal fees, let her keep something. Margaret made sure the jury saw every text message, every Facebook post where she called me controlling behind my back, every Venmo where I sent her $500 for groceries that she spent at the casino. We subpoenaed her Ring camera, the one I'd paid for when they installed it in 2022. Footage showed them boxing my photo albums 2 days after my surgery, Derek telling her. Once the old bat's gone, we flipped this place and moved to Florida. Jury took even less time than the criminal one. $1.2 million in compensatory and punitive damages. The judge tacked on attorney fees. Melanie's condo sold at sheriff's auction for $180,000. Barely covered the first mortgage. Derek's Escalade went for $28,000. Their bank accounts were drained to pennies. The Oklahoma Real Estate Commission revoked Melanie's license permanently in November. Public reprimand posted online forever. She can never sell real estate in any state that checks the national database, which is all of them. I turned 69 on December 12th. Had a little party at the house. Carla, my church friends, Dr. Patel even stopped by with his wife and kids. We ate store-bought cake and watched Buster steal half the meatballs. Somebody asked if I ever hear from Melanie. She writes every week from Mabel Bassett Correctional Center. Begs me to visit. Says she's found God, that the prison chaplain is helping her see the error of her ways. Sends drawings for my granddaughter, stick figures labeled Gamma with hearts. I file them in the same folder as the others. Unopened after the first 10. The house is mine alone again. I removed her from the deed the day the judge signed the order. Put it into an irrevocable trust that benefits the Norman Animal Welfare Shelter and a scholarship for first-generation college kids at the OU College of Pharmacy. Nobody who shares my blood will ever touch a cent. Some nights I still wake up feeling the chest tube, hearing the monitors. I shuffle to the kitchen and make coffee in my husband's old cup. Buster follows me everywhere like he knows. People ask if I'm lonely. I look around at the house I earned with 60 years of work, the dog snoring on the couch I picked out myself, the quiet that belongs to me and me alone. And I think about the last time I saw Melanie, being led away in chains after the civil judgment, screaming that I'd ruined her life. I smile into my coffee. No, baby girl. You ruined your own. And I finally, for the first time in my entire life, get to live mine.